Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel many times before. In fact, this is one of the most reviewed breweries here on RampantLionReviews. This brewery is best known for their kind of New England hazy IPAs, I guess we could say, but this particular beer is a style that I've never had from them before, and it's quite a significant change in direction, I guess we could say as well, and a kind of new beginning for a part of the brewery which I hope does very, very well. So needless to say, I'm really curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us, because I've heard very good things about it. It's also one of their latest releases through Stigbergets here in Sweden as well, so we'll just need to see how we get on. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head up towards Gothenburg once again, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. We've got to get that Gothenburg catchphrase in when we're reviewing Gothenburg beers, because it is just channel tradition these days. And for this review, we are going to return to the wonderful Stigbergets Bryggeri. But you might already be noticing that this container is a wee bit different from what we've had from Stigbergets before. But this beer is their first release of a wild ale. So this particular beer is called Côtes Du Ringôn, if I've pronounced the French properly. It comes in at 6% ABV, and this one is a 12-month barrel-aged wild ale, as I said. So yeah, this should be quite interesting. If memory serves me correctly, this beer was released as part of the Tillfällig temporary assortment through Stigbergets here in Sweden toward the end of September 2022. So yeah, when I saw this one coming out, I thought, you know, we have to try this, the first wild ale from Stigbergets. But it's got very good ratings on Untappd, so I do have high hopes for this one. Let's crack on and see what we have. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Stigbergets Bryggeri before, and we will definitely add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know if you have any other beer or brewery recommendations. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the channel. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about Stigbergets Bryggeri then. So as I mentioned to you already, Stigbergets Bryggeri are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg, up on the Swedish west coast, and this company was founded by Nils Hultkrantz and Richard Simonsson. So these guys owned two bars that share the one kitchen, Bar Kino and the Hagabions Cafe, which can be found on Linnégatan in the city, and both of these opened back in 2007. But the building itself is actually an independent cinema, and if you want to see what it looks like, you can check out my out and about video that I filmed there back in 2018 or 2019, if memory serves me correctly. Really nice place actually. The Bar Kino's in the basement, the Hagabions Cafe is in the lobby of this this really nice cinema. So I need to go and actually check out the Hagabions Cafe at some stage. But originally the ideas that Niels and Richard had was to brew a few beers that they could sell in the bars. This led to them kegging the beer and selling it on to other pubs, and eventually they started bottling their beers beginning in November of 2014. But the original beers that they were brewing were mainly English and German styles, but of course they really started to make their name when they switched focus to the more hoppy American styles of beer. The original head brewer was Ole Anderson, who is a co-owner these days of OO Brewing. This was his own company that he started up very early on. He stayed with them until about April of 2017, if memory serves me correctly, and he was replaced for a short period of time by Barnaby Struve, who was one of the vice presidents of Three Floyds in Munster in Indiana, a little bit to the south of Chicago over in the US, but he only stayed with them for about 3 months. But they moved at this point to a brewery at Partihalana, where they were brewing 5,000 litres at a time, and they also began working on some sour beers there as well, like Berliner Weisses and Goses and things like this. At this point as well, they started selling their beers in 440ml cans as opposed to the old 330ml bottles that they had. You can go and check out some of my very early Stigbergets reviews and you'll see what they used to look like in bottles. But this also allowed them to export their beer a lot more, and that started to build the reputation for Stigbergets Bryggeri abroad. These days they have a brew team of Ollie Banks, who used to work for Beavertown Brewery in London, and also Lucas Munreid, who used to work for All In Brewing, one of the numerous gypsy breweries operating in the Gothenburg area. But as of summer 2020, Stigbergets Bryggeri have been based in Ringön, and they've started, they started brewing beers like this one, more kind of old school, funky wild ale type sour beers, and apparently they do have the opportunity to make some swimming facilities there and also open up a bar. So this is something they are looking to do in the future. But they've opened up a bar in Stockholm called Stigbergets Foot. Stigbergets Foot. It literally has a picture of a foot as the symbol of it. This opened, I believe, in April of 2020, if memory serves me correctly, and they also have their own folköl shop in Gothenburg as well. So for those of you who don't know, in Sweden there is folköl and starköl. Anything 3.5% and below is considered folköl. It can be sold in the supermarkets or privately, whereas anything above that ABV has to be sold through Systembolaget, which is the state-owned alcohol monopoly, if we can call it that. But yeah, as I said, these guys are known mainly for their New England hazy IPAs. They do some very nice imperial stouts and things like this as well. They have done some really nice examples of other styles. They've got the Ringelbräu series of lagers, which is very interesting. They release beers to that every so often as well. But yeah, definitely still most well known for their New England hazy IPAs. So if you get the chance to try the new and improved GBG Beer Week beer or the Amazing Haze, those are two of the four cult classic Swedish New England hazy IPAs in my opinion. The other two, of course, would be O.O. Narangi and the New Sweden IPA from Stigbergets Bryggeri. But as of October 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, Stigbergets have produced around 210 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and I'm sure they will continue to add to that. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Stigbergets Bryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, check out the brewery website, follow them on social media to keep up to date with the latest goings on. You can, of course, check out my older reviews or the Untappd page to learn a little bit more about some of the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's see if we can get this guy open. I was quite curious before the review. You might notice there is a little line in the wax top here. I cut this before we started filming because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get this beer open on the actual video, so we might have to edit this one. We'll just need to see. But yeah, like I said earlier, this beer is called Côtes Du Ringôn. You can see, Gothenburg is quite a well-known port city, of course, but yeah, you can see the cranes and stuff like that there because the Ringön area is very close to the port. I don't know if it is actually the port. I forget the map of Gothenburg, to be honest with you. But yeah, this is a 375ml bottle. If memory serves me correctly, I think I paid 80 Swedish krona for this one. So that is about €8, somewhere in the region of £7.50 sterling, maybe about $8.50 American. It could have been a little bit more than that. I genuinely forget what this beer cost. But as I say, the first sour wild ale release from Stigbergets, I thought, we have to try this one. So yeah, 6% ABV, this one. This one contains malted barley and wheat, it says. So yeah, we'll just see if we can get this open and see what we have here. As I say, if I struggle with it, I will pause the video and we'll see about getting it open. So there you can see we've got the wax top off. You can also see the bottle cap there as well. This is quite old school. This is what the Stigbergets bottle caps used to be like. But yeah, let's just see if we can get under this and get it open. We might have to just pause the video and we'll see. So yeah, guys, I think unfortunately I am going to have to pause the video. So catch you in just a second. Alright guys, so I think we should be able to get it now. I just cut another ring just a little bit below the bottle cap. So fingers crossed we can get it this time. We will need to see. There we go. Rip that other ring off. There you are. And yeah, now we can get under the bottle cap. And typically we have a cork. So I was not expecting that. I have to say, I was not expecting that. So, yeah. Sometimes this just happens. I really didn't expect it to, you know, I didn't expect it to have a wax top and a cork. That's maybe just taking it a little bit too far, to be honest with you. There we go. Yeah, so finally we have it open, and yeah, we got the cork. Yeah, anyway, there we go. So a bit of a battle to get into this one, but yeah, let's just see what we have then. I'll need to remember that in future if we have some of the Stigbergets beers from this sour series. But yeah, there we are. I do like that function on this this phone. For those of you who wonder, I film on an Asus Zenfone Flip, and it's awesome. So yeah, love it, absolutely love it. You can just pause the recording and go straight back into it. No need to edit. It's great. So yeah, handy when you get beers like this that, you know, are going to be a battle to open. But anyway, so as you can see, this beer looks pretty damn nice, I have to say. Before the head disappears, I would say that this one is poured with just under a half finger of a frothy, perfect white head. That is thinning away to be a very, you know, just very wispy, airy, foamy layer, but there's a nice kind of thicker ring around the edge of the glass there. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of that head there, but overall it does look very, very nice. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones heading up toward the bottom of the head there. But yeah, if we shine the light through this beer, it looks very, very nice. You can kind of see the sort of haziness from the wheat in this one, to be honest with you. So yeah, remember, the colour of your beer depends very much on the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, the length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar is going to caramelise, and thus you'll get a darker coloured beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in will affect the colour too. And when it comes to the lighter coloured sour beers such as this one, that will play a role, definitely. But yeah, lovely kind of bright yellow golden straw colour, this one, and you can see that lovely hazy character to it, which I would guess is down to the wheat and probably the fact that this beer is I'm guessing that it will be unfiltered. But it looks, let's say, very, very nice, this one. Yeah, lovely, lovely looking beer. So yeah, I don't think we need to say anything else about the appearance of this one. It does look pretty damn good, I have to say. So yeah, we'll have a wee look at the aroma and see what we get from this one. Oh yeah, that's pretty damn nice. It gives me the impression that it might be white wine barrel aged, or yeah, I think just going from the aroma you can tell straight away white wine barrel aged. I don't know if Stigbergets have bought any kind of fodders and things like that for, you know, doing this series of beer, but yeah, I think this one, you know, calling it the Côtes Du Ringôn, it's probably, this one might well turn out to be like a core range, a sort of core sour beer, one that they do every year or something like that. You know, a yearly release. But aroma wise, it is pretty nice. And this beer did actually have quite a high rating on Untappd when I checked it out. I think it was a 3.9, which for a first release, kind of funky old school sour beer, I think is pretty impressive, to be honest with you. Yeah, there's not many breweries in Sweden doing things like this. Marietorgets Bryggeri is one. You know, Untappd Bryggeri. You've got the old school guys like Bryggeriet here in Skåne. So yeah, this style of beer, Jackdaw, of course, in Uppsala as well, do some very nice examples of things like this. So yeah, for Stigbergets to go ahead and do one, I think is quite interesting. I have to say the aroma is very, very nice, and it again sparks my curiosity. So the backbone of this beer, absolutely, you can smell that nice, smooth, oaky, woody character. It smells like an American oak to me, because it's very, very smooth, and you just get that little hint of vanilla out of it. I think the European oak always smells just a little bit drier, and it has a wee touch of kind of spiciness to it. But yeah, I do like how that all pieces together for sure. Yeah, as I say, a lovely little bit of smooth, dry, oaky kind of character for this one. You get that little touch of vanilla in there as well. On top of that, there's a wee bit of a kind of fresh white bread crust for sure. Nice kind of soft white bready characteristics also. Yeah, it's like you can definitely smell that little bit of wheat in there as well, because the white bread is quite dense, and at the back of the nose there's just a little touch of like bitiness from the wheat as well. But on top of that, yeah, as I say, wood, white bread crust, white bread, density to the white bread too. There are wee elements of like butterscotchy and butter candy type character in the malt base there as well. Maybe a little hint of a McVitie's digestive biscuit, but yeah, I think it does go together quite well that way. It's you know, it gives you everything you would want from this particular beer style actually, so I have to say I'm quite impressed with that. I'm just curious to see what the flavour is going to be like. But on the hoppy side of things, you know, after 12 months, most of the hops are going to have dropped out of this beer. And quite often what the Belgians would do with beers like this is that they would add old hops to them so that they wouldn't, the hoppy bitterness would not detract from the overall sourness of the beer. I get the impression that that's maybe what has happened with, or has been done with this one as well, because you do get a little bit of that earthiness and herbal character to the beer, but at the same time it still retains a good little bit of a bright grassy character, which I find really, I do find that really interesting with this beer actually. Yeah, I like how that goes together. The sort of green component this one has is very, very nice. Yeah. Other than that, behind, you know, the fruity side of this beer is interesting too. You definitely get that white wine vinous character, which I personally find really interesting. You can smell that white green grainy note, grapey note to it, sorry, but with just the white wine behind it. You are getting a sort of, with the fruity side of the beer, you're getting a kind of fresh green apple as well. There's a little touch of a kind of dry peary sort of thing. And almost just a wee touch of gooseberry. There's almost just, there's one or two aromas in this that are actually reminding me of Japanese sake in some ways. You know, the slightly drier honjozos. It's just got a little bit of that going on with it. But like I say, definitely a little bit of gooseberry, almost Nelson Sauvin type quality to it. Yeah. It'd be interesting actually to know whether there was a wee bit of Nelson Sauvin in this, because it smells very distinctive. The other option, of course, would be Hallertau Blanc. But anyway, so yeah, a little bit of that going on with this beer. Gooseberry, white green grape, you get the white wine vinous notes, a bit of fresh green apple, maybe just a little bit of dry oily pear or something like that in behind it too. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together I think is very, very nice. Aroma wise it certainly sparks my interest. As I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in, but I think it is about time that we taste this one. So yeah, this is the Côtes Du Ringôn, the first wild ale sour beer release through Systembolaget here in Sweden from the wonderful Stigbergets Bryggeri. 12 months aged this one. I suspect white wine barrel aged, 6% ABV. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Ooh. That's very nice. I will be straight up and say, I can see why this beer has a good rating on Untappd. Compared to some of the other beers I've had in this category recently, this one's actually, it's very wet and very juicy in its impact. But for me, when it comes to these old school, more kind of funky type sour beers, for me it's all about how they mellow out. And you know, we've only had one sip of it, but the way that this beer mellows out into the aftertaste, I think is very, very nice actually. Yeah. But yeah, as I say, it gets a big thumbs up from me. This is definitely one of the kind of wettest and juiciest sour, you know, kind of sort of Belgian-y, funky, old school type sour beers that I've had, but I really like it. You know, it's just really, really nicely done. this one actually. And if this is the first attempt that Stigbergets have done, I'm curious to see what they're going to pull off in the future, because this is a good beer. I like this. I will need to recommend this to my colleague Alan at the at Bishop's Arms. He loves the big, you know, the kind of big lambic-y sour beer type thing. So I think he potentially could enjoy this one. But yeah, this is good. Very soft and smooth in its mouthfeel as well, but we'll come to that later on. I just think this is a really enjoyable beer, this one. As I've always said, you know, for me, these kind of sour beers, a lot of the times I find sour beers aren't the most complex of things, but it's all about how the beer kind of develops into the aftertaste. For me, that is what makes a good sour beer such as this one, and this does it really well. But let's break it down and actually describe it for you. So, middle third of the palate then. The backbone of the beer is, of course, that nice, smooth, woody character, and for me, this is where I was saying I was quite sure from the aroma that it was American oak in this one. When I actually taste the beer, I'm not 100% sure, and I'll, you know, tell you why in a minute. But the middle third of your palate, you've got that lovely smooth oaky note there, and towards the front of that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch of vanilla there. So that does make me think American oak. Again, we'll come back to that in a second. But on top of that, you do get a nice little light smattering of a kind of fresh white bready bread crust quality, and then you can feel the white bready notes for this one, and they do feel quite dense, but at the same time they're quite smooth, and you have a slightly more dense wheat character just sitting on top of that, and that helps smoothing out the whole beer. The malty and kind of barrel woody backbone of this beer is very, very smooth. Yeah, I do like that, and the thing is, what this beer has, you know, the further you go into the aftertaste with it, it really just has this very kind of almost juicy quality. It really has a different feel to the other beers that I've had that fit in this category recently, and that's, you know, I like beers that, you know, I like it when breweries do that. You know, they show you a different side to a beer style that you know fairly well. So yeah, that's a thing that's kind of sticking in mind with this one for me. So yeah, I really do like this. I really do like how this goes together. On top of the white bready layer then, and the sort of wheaty layer that we said, you can feel it's nice and smooth on top, but there are little elements of kind of a little bit of a sweeter side to this one. In the dead centre of that middle third of your palate, you've got a more you do get a little bit more of a kind of sweetness in there. So there's a little circle in the middle of your palate that is more of a kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. It's not too sweet, but it's definitely present there. As you move further out from that, it just sort of lightens up a little bit and almost becomes a wee touch more, it almost becomes just a wee touch more biscuity. But yeah, it's not not as biscuity as you'll get in, say, you know, like a West Coast IPA or a New England or something like that. The brown sugary notes in this beer are very, very light. But they just add a wee more complexity to it. But I have to say, I'm impressed with this kind of first effort at a wild ale from Stigbergets. They have done a nice job with this one. Yeah. So, on the back third of the palate then, and we can talk about the wood. So yeah, the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, again you get a little touch of a bready build up there, but I think it goes together, say, really nicely. But the back third of the palate, on the back third of the palate you get a little bit more of the, you can feel that the wood gets a little touch drier, so you can feel that, and again that's what makes me wonder, European oak versus American oak. As I always say, European oak is a little touch drier, I think, than American oak, which has a bit more smoothness to it. But on top of that, yeah, on top of that nice smooth woody character, you can feel the bready notes. The bread crust, I think, does get a little touch grainier, but then you can feel that that white bready layer is a little bit taller, but also a little bit more dense and smooth. So yeah, you've got that really nice, dense and smooth character to the bread there as well. And that's an interesting point about this one, because normally more grainy and dry flavours come out further back on the palate, but the bread in this beer is, as I say, very, very smooth. But it works, it really does work. So you've got that nice kind of slightly more airy, but still dense, white bready character. Then on top of that, there's a little bit of the wheat. You get a little touch of dryness and bitiness from the wheat. Very small, I would say. And then on top of that, you've got the more kind of airy, yeasty esters coming out of the beer. And again, that's a very, very light, airy, slightly farmhousey, you know, fresh bread character there. But yeah, back third of the palate, the flavour is definitely taller. And then as you come further forward into the middle third of the palate, it condenses down a little bit. But that quite often happens with this beer. But yeah, back corners of the palate. If we move on to the kind of green hoppy component of this beer, this is interesting because you do get some of the sourness kind of spreading round in front of your tongue as well. But we'll take the kind of green component first. In the back corners of the palate, there is a little touch of smooth earthiness there, but as you move further forward, you do get a little bit more of a floral character. Then there's a wee touch of kind of floral, just a very bright floral note on the front corners of the palate, but round the front curve of the tongue, for me, it is more light. And it is a little bit lighter and a bit more kind of grassy, to be honest with you. So that's that is quite interesting for sure. But as I say, I think it's maybe old hops that have been added into this one. But it does have this beer does have a little bit of Nelson Sauvin type vibe to it. There's just something in this it's the fruitiness and the kind of green component that's telling me it's Nelson Sauvin. It's got that nice bright floral note that you'll always get from Nelson Sauvin. So yeah, be very curious to know that, but that's another story. But yeah, the green component, this beer, for being 12 months aged, it does retain quite a bit of its green component, and I like that. But let's focus on the front third of the palate. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up. Again, it is more like a dense white bready note there, but then, as I say, underneath that you get that smooth, woody character once again, the sort of American oak, and there's a wee touch of vanilla in there. But then on top of that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out from the hops. But you've also got the impact of the sour side of this beer as well. So let's take both of those. So when you take the beer in, you get this nice, just behind the very front tip of your tongue, you get that nice little bit of a slightly sharp, you get that nice little bit of slightly sharp white wine vinous-y character there, and that just comes in, and then it comes in with a little bit of zip on the front tip of your tongue, then it just rolls out over the top of the hoppy side of the beer. So into the aftertaste, on the kind of front half of the front third of your palate, you have this kind of fresh green apple type quality, but then underneath you have, underneath all of that, you have this more oily this other more, not grapefruity, gooseberry type thing. There is something that tells me that there might be Nelson Sauvin or Hallertau Blanc in this one, but you have some fresh green apple in there, as I said. And then yeah, the base of this front third of your palate is more, yeah, like gooseberry, white green grapes. It really is like that. It's a mixture of white green grape and a bit of gooseberry, and then, as I say, on the front tip of the tongue you've got more of a kind of fresh green apple, and then the impact of the white wine sour just comes in on top of that and just mellows out. And it does, in fairness, the sort of vinous qualities linger into the aftertaste with this one. But yeah, it works really nicely. And as I said, overall, to me, this is quite a juicy, more old school sour beer, this one. It's a big thumbs up for me. I've enjoyed this. Something a bit different, a completely different side of Stigbergets, of course, as well. But it works. And as I say, I'd be very curious to know if it is Nelson Sauvin in this one. Let's round off this review with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So for me, compared to other beers, I always find the old school sour beers like this a bit light in their mouthfeel. But this one has a good bit of body to it. I think we can say that for the old school sour beer category. I think it's pushing toward the top and mid bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth in this one. It does have a wee bit of an oiliness to it, but almost a bit of a silkiness to the mouthfeel as well. In terms of IBUs, I think this one is I do think this one is quite, it's low. I think, it'll be 5-10 IBU, something like that, if that at all. But yeah, very low IBU. This one, the malt base and the woody side of things, we said the woody character is very smooth. Gets a bit drier later on, like further back on the palate. There's a tiny touch of sweetness to it, but a big smoothness in the middle. And yeah, I think that goes together really well. There's a bit of an oily fruitiness to this one, that gooseberry, white, green, grapey sort of thing. And the sour impact of this one is just really nice. But it's actually quite a juicy and wet sour beer, this one, compared to others that we've had in the past. But I think Stigbergets have done a really nice job of this one. I wasn't sure what we were going to think about this, what I was going to think about this, and my colleague Alan, who absolutely loves sour beers, he is quite sceptical about this one, but I think I will need to tell him he needs to try it and go for it, because I think that is very, very nicely done. So yeah, it gets a big thumbs up from me, this one. So I look forward to seeing what other beers are released from this range from Stigbergets in the future, because yeah, they've shown they can do some really interesting lagers. But in terms of the, I think, relatively speaking, the quality of this beer relative to other old school funky sour beers is a lot stronger than the lagers that they've released from the Ringhubløje range of beer. That is very, very nicely done. So yeah, that's potentially the most impressive beer I've had from Stigbergets in quite a while, and that's not to take anything away from any of the other stuff they've done, but that is pretty damn good. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Côtes Du Ringôn, a 6%, 12-month aged wild ale, the very first kind of old school funky type sour beer that I've had from Stigbergets up in Gothenburg. Loved it, really enjoyed this one. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Stigbergets Bryggeri as well. And like I said, we will return to these guys very, very soon. Till the next time, Slange, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out theirs, and we'll have more reviews up for you very, very shortly.